Okay, so we're in the Rambam's Mishneh Torah. We're in the second book, Sefer Ahavah, the book of love. We're in Hilchot Berachot, Parak Vav, so chapter 6, the laws of blessings. It says, one who eats bread on which one recites hamotzi must wash his hands prior to and following the meal. So prior to avoid transferring impurity to the bread, despite the bread being unconsecrated and not able to contract impurity like consecrated bread. This is true, although his hands are not dirty and he is unaware of their becoming ritually impure. Excuse me, he still may not eat until washing both hands. So too, any food dipped in liquid also requires washing the hands prior to eating it. So liquid. Trying to think of something that would be referring to, like maybe even like so dipping vegetables in like a dressing is like a liquid, unless it's like the real thick stuff. But anyway, upon washing one's hands, whether before a meal or for reciting the Shema or before prayer, first recites the blessing, who has sanctified us with his mitzvot and commanded us regarding washing the hands. For this is a mitzvah of rabbinic origin, whose commands the Torah commanded us to heed, as it states, quote, according to the Torah which they instruct you. It doesn't give a verse. Okay, anyway. One does not recite a blessing for the water used for washing the hands after a meal, for its purpose is to prevent risk. One therefore must be very careful in regards to it. So that is mein achronim. So washing your fingers after your meal, before you say Berachot Hamazon. So mein achronim is a chovah. It's an obligation. So even in a time of war, you can forego washing hands before a meal for bread, but you should not forego washing your fingers after the meal before Berachot Hamazon. So one must be very careful in regards to it. That means that you shouldn't overlook it. Okay. And mein achronim is these are things that are dealing with spiritual matters. So continuing. Washing the hands between different dishes is optional. So if one wishes to, one may wash, and if one does not wish to, one need not wash. So unconsecrated fruits do not require washing the hands, neither before nor after eating them. And one who does wash his hands for its fruits is considered an ignorant spirit. One who measures salt must wash his hands afterwards, lest it include salt from Sodom or salt with a character of Sodom from salt. And one may pass his hands over his eyes and blind himself. One must therefore wash his hands at the end of every meal due to the salt. Those in a military encampment are exempt from washing the hands before a meal, for they are occupied with the war, but they are required to wash their hands after the meal due to the risk involved. And that's what I was just saying. So how far must one wash the hands? Up to the joint. How much water must one use? A revi'it for both hands. So anything which is considered an obstruction to ritual immersion is considered an obstruction when washing the hands. And any kind of water that counts towards the measure of a mikvah counts towards the measure of the revi'it for washing the hands. Okay. Anyone who is required to wash his hands, if he immersed them in water of a mikvah, he does. So going back to that, if there's anything that's considered an obstruction to ritual immersion is considered an obstruction when washing the hands. Now, I don't remember exactly which volume that is. I'm thinking like volume 13 or something of Mishneh Torah. I can't remember. But anyway, so there's a lot of different things. So it could be dirt. It could be like oils. It could be dough, things under your fingernails. So basically you want to make sure that you have your hands washed and that they're clean beforehand. But there are some things, so most people don't necessarily realize this, but if it's something that doesn't actually bother you, then it's not considered an obstruction. Okay? So anyone who is required to wash his hands, if he immerses them in water of a mikvah, he does not require anything more. But if one immerses them in water which does not have the volume of a mikvah, or immerses them in drawn water that is now on or in the ground, he has accomplished nothing. For drawn water does not purify the hands except by pouring. Drawn water does not purify the hands except by pouring. So, as it says, if you have a mikvah or something that counts as a mikvah, you can immerse your hands But if you don't, then you have to pour literally, this would be, and pouring is not like letting the faucet run over that. It would be having a vessel that you're using human effort to pour. Okay. One who washes his hands must take care regarding 4 things. Number 1, the water, that it should not be unfit for washing the hands. The measure, that it should be a revi'it for every 2 hands. The vessel, that the water used for pouring should be contained in a vessel, and the person pouring, that the water should come through the force of a person who pours them. That's just what I said. It's not the faucet. Through the force of a person pouring it. So even if you had like a keg or something, like a jug with a little flip handle on it, so that flip handle is not, that does not require, that's not the force of a human. So the force of a human would be literally having the vessel, pouring it on your hands. Okay. There are 4 things which make the water unfit: a change in its appearance, overnight exposure, previous use, and degradation that would prevent an animal from drinking it. So you can't use water that an animal won't drink from, right? So that means like really muddy water. I mean, animals drink a lot of stuff, but like really muddy water, they definitely won't. And if you have really bad city water, it might actually, there's a possibility, I don't know. There's a lot of chemicals that go in water these days. So if you live in a place where it's really bad city water, you might even consider like using the filtered water if you've got like a filter, whether it's a filter on your faucet or something like that. But that might be something you have to consider. A change in its appearance, overnight exposure, meaning it being uncovered, previous use, and degradation that would prevent an animal from drinking it. So like if you're washing your hands into a bowl, right, or a sink or of some basin, you can't like scoop the water back out of that and use it again. So how is this so? Water whose appearance has changed, whether in a vessel or on or in the ground, whether due to something having fallen in them or due to their location, is unfit. So too, if they were exposed in a way that prohibits drinking them, they are unfit for washing the hands. So if you go to the section in Mishneh Torah that deals with the mikvah and immersion and stuff like that, that would be something to read up on. That we'll get to it a lot later in the future here. So any water that was previously used is considered wastewater and is unfit for washing the hands. What is an example thereof? Water that was drawn and used for washing dishes or for soaking one's bread or similar uses, whether in a vessel or in the ground, is unfit for washing the hands. If one used them to wash clean or new dishes, they are not rendered unfit. Water used by a baker for dipping the loaves is unfit, but water from which he fills his hands while kneading is fit for washing the hands. For only the water in his palms is considered to have been previously used, while the water from which he fills his palms remains fit for use. Okay, any water which became unfit for a dog to drink, for example, if it is bitter, salty, cloudy, or foul-smelling, to the extent that a dog would not drink them. If in a vessel, it is unfit for washing the hands, but if in or on the ground, it is fit for immersion. The hot springs of Tiberias, when at their source, are fit for immersing the hands. But if one poured their water over his hands from a vessel or drew a channel from them to another place, they may not be used for washing before nor after a meal, for they are not potable even for animals. So I'm assuming that the minerals in the water are probably really strong. I'm not exactly sure about the waters of Tiberias, the hot springs of Tiberias, but anyway. One may pour the water over his hands little by little until the correct measure has been used. If he poured the entire revi'it in a single pour, it is acceptable. 4 or 5 people may wash with their hands alongside each other or with their hands above one another in a single pour, so as long as they keep their hands loose enough for water to pass between them, and if the pour includes a revi'it for each one of them. So one may not wash one's hands with water contained in the side walls of broken vessels, or in the bottom of a cask, or in potsherds, nor in the cover of a cask. If the cover was fixed and flattened, especially for this purpose, one may use it for washing the hands, and a leather water bag which he stabilized on a stand may also be used for washing the hands. However, a sack or basket, even if fixed for this purpose, may not be used for washing the hands. One may not pour water from one's own palms onto his fellows, for the palms do not constitute a vessel. A vessel broken to the extent that if it was impure, it would become pure, may not be used for washing the hands because it is considered a vessel fragment. So that, I think you have to halakhically, check with your rabbi on what they consider, but like plastic, in some instances, is considered like a earthenware vessel, because plastic, was not around then, and some people consider it as one thing or another. So if you have a plastic container that you're using that's cracked, that would be something to, you obviously don't want to use something that's cracked, but if you're in that situation. Anyway, any vessels may be used for washing the hands, even dung vessels or earthenware, so long as they are whole. So a vessel which cannot hold a riviyit, or which does not presently contain a riviyit, may not be used for washing the hands. So any person is fit for washing the hands, including a deaf mute, a mentally impaired person, and a minor child. If there's no one else present, one may place the vessel between his knees and pour the water over his hands, or tilt the pitcher over his hands, and so wash them. Or one may wash one hand, pouring water over one hand and with the other, and then going back and pouring over the first hand with the second. A monkey may be used to wash a person's hands. So a trough which is filled with water, drawn by human hand or by a water wheel, from which water flows to a channel and is used to water vegetables or animals. If one places his hands inside the trough and the water passes over his hands and washes them, it is not considered pouring over the hands if there was no one doing the pouring. But if his hands are close to the point where the bucket is poured, to the extent that the water washing his hands flows by the force of human pouring, it is counted as washing of the hands. If one is in doubt as to whether or not the water he used to wash was previously used, or whether it has the proper measure or not, or whether it is fit or unfit for washing, or if one is unsure as to whether he has already washed his hands or not, the uncertainty is ruled ritually pure. For any uncertainty regarding purity of the hands is considered pure. Okay. When washing his hands before a meal, one should raise his hands upward so that the first pour of water does not flow down from the wrist to the arm, drip back to the hand after the second pour, and render the hands impure again, not having been purified by the second pour. But when washing the hands after the meal, the hands should be lowered so that the entire effect of the salt is removed from the hands. When washing before the meal, one may wash over a vessel or on the ground. But after the meal, one must not wash over the ground. When washing before a meal, one may use water heated by fire or cold water. But after the meal, so my nachronim, one may not wash with hot water. If it is hot enough to cause the hand to withdraw, because it will not serve to wash away the filth, as it is impossible to rub the hands with it. If it is lukewarm, it may be used to wash the hands after the meal. So my nachronim, you should be using cold water. This is what they say. He's telling you that the maximum is that if it's too hot that you have to withdraw your hand, then it's not acceptable. Some people, they run their hot water tanks to be like hotter than you can withstand with your hand for maybe washing dishes and stuff. So if you had like that type of hot water and you were trying to use it, that'd be unacceptable. But anyway, something I want to say on that. No. So one may wash his hands in the morning and stipulate that this should serve him for the entire day. He then will not need to wash his hands each time he eats, so long as his thoughts have not been distracted from them. But if his thoughts were distracted from them, he must wash his hands every time washing is required. I don't know what "from them" is referring to. his thoughts not distracted from his hands, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. A person may wrap his hands in cloth and eat bread or something dipped in liquid with them, even if he has not washed his hands. One who feeds another person need not wash his hands. But one who eats must wash his hands even if he does not touch the food, and another feeds him. Sorry, let me read that again. A person may wrap his hands in cloth and eat bread or something dipped in liquid with them, even if he has not washed his hands. Okay, so one who feeds another person need not wash his hands, but one who eats must wash his hands even if he does not touch the food, and another feeds him. So too, one who eats with a spoon is required to wash his hands. It is forbidden to feed someone who has not washed his hands, even if the food is placed directly in the person's mouth. It is forbidden to treat the washing of hands lightly. The sages instituted many commandments regarding washing the hands and warned to be heedful of it. Even if one only has enough water to drink, one should wash his hands with part of it and then eat, and then drink the rest. One must wipe his hands dry before eating, and one who eats without wiping his hands dry is considered to have eaten impure bread. One who washes his hands after the meal first wipes his hands dry and then recites grace after meals. One should recite grace after meals immediately after washing the hands without interrupting in between for anything else. Even drinking water after washing the hands after the meal, after my nachronim, is forbidden until one recites grace after meals. What does it want to say about that? Okay, well, that's the end of chapter 6.